realistic type of portrait. So, and we're going to model it after the example that is here. All right, there is a video tutorial that kind of gives you an overview of what this is. And then, you know, if you do want to kind of develop this a little bit more, we have an ad here.
The obvious choice is going to...
All right, so this kind of additional resource I put on here I thought was interesting as an extension of these, where they did 10 flat faces kind of based on the first one. And again, like what we talked about with the gradient landscapes, I think this type of artwork would be pretty useful for game design and animation and that type of thing. So, you know, if you enjoy doing the first example we're doing today, maybe you want to play around and do something like this. And I would certainly offer that as extra credit. All right, so going back to what we're going to do here, you guys probably opened that picture that we download. Since I have a file already set up, I'm going to just place in the original that we have here. All right, so we have our image placed, I guess. And then, so what we're going to do first, so that we can use this as a tracing layer, all right, I'm going to have, what I'd like you guys to do is go to your properties panel, find your opacity, lower this to 50%. All right. If you are going to go on to doing an additional portrait, it's probably going to be more detailed than these minimalistic ones. So using like a tracing layer will be very beneficial to you. All right. So we lower the opacity so that when you draw on top of it, you can kind of determine the difference between your reference and what you're actually drawing. All right. So now that we've lowered the opacity, how can we make it so that we don't modify this accidentally? What can we do to this layer? Good. So I'm going to press the lock icon here. All right, and actually though, I'm going to put this into a new layer. I want to keep this, no, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, this is the one I did in the morning, so I'm just going to kind of lock that again. All right, so I have this as my my reference layer, my tracing. Now I'm going to make a new layer to draw on top of it. All right, so a little bit of practice with the pen, because I do feel we need a little more work on that and, you know, finding a relative or an applicable use for it. So we're going to start by tracing the face. If you notice and you hover your mouse over the image, you should get this pink line that indicates the middle of the image. All right, that's important because we don't need to draw on both sides. We can kind of draw the face, and what we're going to do today is learn how to reflect this to the other side. So if I hover my mouse over the top of the head, all right, I'm going to click to make my first point, and then if we remember from using our pen to make the Bezier paths, we can click and drag to get that curved line. And before I let go, because if I did that one there and then come over here, my points get all kind of out of whack there. So I'm going to click and drag, and kind of like we did with the heart, I believe, we're going to hold our Alt key and we can bring the second handle back up so that our next point doesn't really have an effect on that, or the handle doesn't. All right, another thing I like to do here is switch the fill and the stroke so that it's not filling in the line. We just have like an outline around it. All right, so far I made 2 points. I'm going to continue around here to draw the shape of the face. So, you know, again, click and drag, hold that Alt key, move on to the next point, and then here's my last point here. And then I'm going to come back up to the middle to complete a half of the face. All right, so that's what I'd like to see to get started here, is that we drew half of the face, and then I'm going to show you guys how we can mirror that or reflect it to the other side. Instead of drawing this again on the other side and having things be a little bit different, we can use a function called reflecting. So if we go to Object, Transform, and Reflect, you have an option. It should be vertical, and then we want to make a copy. Now, let's see, did it go? That did not reflect it. Let's try that again. Object. Transform, reflect. There we go. Alright, so what that did is it made a mirror image of it on the other side. We're going to line this up like this. And then we can use the shape builder to combine them.
Why would it give you some random shape?
What happened?
What?
I had a copy, but like.
Alright, so after we get this the face joined together, what I would suggest doing, we'll take advantage of some of the swatch libraries that we have. There is one called Skin Tones. Alright, so if we go to our swatches, and at the bottom we go to our swatch library, you see one that's called Skin Tones. Alright, so now you can choose something that's a little more realistic to looking like a skin. I'm going to take off my stroke color to this. Alright, and we have something like this going on. Alright, that was supposed to be together. When we shape build them, it shouldn't. There we go. Now I'm all as one. Alright, so let's go into our layers then. I'm going to lock this shape here because I don't want to take a chance. I want to leave that right where it is. I guess my layers are closed. Or I just don't see them somewhere.
You gotta fill it in now?
Yep, fill it in. Alright, so next I'm going to move on to the hair. I used the swatch library and went to Skin Tones. Alright, so for the hair, we're going to start with an ellipse. We're going to go like right in the middle. And if you hold the Alt key as you're holding the Shift, you'll see that the circle extends from the middle. Alright, because I think by default we kind of just click and drag, and then you have to move it around and scale it. So this is kind of a keyboard shortcut that speeds up the process. So I'm clicking in the middle, and I am holding Shift and Alt, and now it expands from the middle. Alright, so I'm going to start with a circle that kind of is the same size we can see of the hair up here, or this kind of weird looking shape. I'm going to change the color of it. It's in the Skin Tone library.
Where do you find skin tones on these?
So you start with swatches, and at the bottom of the swatch panel you click on the little on the left that looks like a stack of books, and then Skin Tones. Alright, watch what I'm going to do next so that you kind of can see the steps involved with this. Alright, so if I go to make these kind of jagged edges, alright, we're going to go to Effect, Distort and Transform, and Zigzag. Alright, so that's Effect, Distort and Transform, and Zigzag. We turn on our preview and we can see that it's going to create all these ridges. So I'm going to make a lot of ridges. I would suggest that you make your size very small though, because when you start overlapping them, if you have these high peaks and valleys, then it's kind of hard to remove stuff. Alright, so we have something like that. Alright, and I'll pause. Alright, so to make this so that it doesn't modify the edges, we're going to go to Object, Expand Appearance. I already did it, so it's grayed out here. Alright, but then now if we make our copies, and again I encourage you to use keyboard shortcuts instead of copy, paste, move. Just do left, Alt click, and then left click and drag. Change your color. Alt, left click, drag. Change your color. Now we select all three, and by using our shape builder now to subtract, we press Alt. See how our cursor changes to a minus? And now it doesn't modify those ridges like it did before. Alright, so we have nice consistency throughout here. And then if I take my face shape and drag it on top of all that, Now we have that happening in there, right? And just kind of we can see. So that's what we have so far. All right, maybe I do want a little bit. I could do an edge around there, right? So the last thing we'll do is the shirt, but I want to kind of make sure everybody can get. All right, so we have our shape here. I'm going to give it a different color. All right, and to kind of get that cutout effect, right, we would have to draw a shape, and I guess we could do some subtraction, but then if you wanted to ever modify it, then you'd have to kind of start again. So I'm reminding you how we have this draw inside feature, which is a drawing mode. So if I have my shape selected, select draw inside, now we can make a new shape and kind of put it in there, and we see that it's masked by the edge. If you decided later that you want this shape to take up more room, right, we can move it around in there, and it is masked by the edge.
Wait, can you do that
Yep.
with the hair?
I did it in my example with using the brush. When I tried to do it today, it didn't work for some reason, so I have to go back and kind of do some experimentation with that.
Like how it has like the black on like the bottom side of your hair.
Yes, you could do that there, and what I was...
I just have to make like a circle? No way.
Well, what I was saying was, like, in here, that's what I did. I know, so you don't have to erase the edge or really be neat with it, but I know I used a brush, and I thought that would be kind of very useful. Did you guys all do a summary?
Yeah, I
Alright.
snipped what I had and then I put on Twitter what I
Okay.
had so far.
I got the 15 minutes when I come back, so.
Okay. All right, so that's the last thing I'm looking for on this. All right, if you have more detail, that'll be extra credit. But that is where I'd like you to be today, to kind of review and practice some of the pen techniques. We learned a new effect with the zigzag aspect here, and then the drawing inside. So those will be some of the major components of this portrait that we're going to have to do. I think that's it for this lesson.